August in the garden is kind of a really weird month. It feels like you're still in the depths of summer and it is freaking warm outside. But the reality is that if you live somewhere similar to like where I live in Saskatchewan, the clock is ticking. And the next 3 to 4 weeks can make it or break it for how much you harvest this year and what your garden's going to look like next year. So today's video, we're going to go over 3 different things you must do in the month of August to help propel your garden forward next year and or till the end of this season. Now, this video is drastically different than the video I just did on 3 things in August that absolutely will kill your garden and how to actually prevent them. And none of those 3 topics are actually brought up in this video. But number 1 is one that I struggled with doing for years because it's really tough to do, but it's a very real hack when it comes to succeeding in your garden overall. If you've watched this channel before, you know that this bed used to be completely full of plants. You also know that this bed used to be completely full of plants. And the reality here is that you should not wait until all your greens turn brown. If you have something that has been fully harvested, say bush beans, for example, or you simply have plants that are trashed by wind, mechanical damage, hail, maybe they've had some sort of pest issue, whatever the case may be, use those greens in your compost. Greens are really hard to come by. It's one of the things I struggle with. I can find brown stuff anywhere you look. My mulch, my leaves in the fall, you name it. I've got more than enough brown stuff. But green stuff is very difficult to come by. So rather than waiting for these to just kind of naturally completely desiccate themselves in October, now is the time to actually compost them. The reality is that greens are the reason why microbes take off inside of your compost, and therefore adding them can increase your microbial activity. Now, if you want this to degrade faster, to compost quicker, you actually want to take these and break them up so you have more surface area for the microbes to work on, which may mean physically ripping them, using a weed whacker in a bucket, you name it. There's anything to kind of break it up. I don't do that because I'm lazy. That's just the reality of it. But it's definitely something you can do. Now, here's the one thing I will say, and it's a question I get all the time. Can you compost diseased leaves? And the answer to this is very subjective. It completely depends on what your perceived ability is when it comes to composting. If you think you're a hot composting pro, it's very likely it's getting warm enough to kill a lot of pathogens. Bacterial, probably not fungal because fungi can live through anything, including multiple ice ages and apocalypses. But I digress. The reality here is that disease can sometimes take out crops year after year because one of the best places for them to overwinter is actually in your compost where it's nice and warm and humid, but not warm enough to actually kill them off per se. So what this means for you is that if you are a good hot composter, you're confident in your ability to hot compost, then yes, of course, you can absolutely put your diseased plants into the bin. But if you are in doubt, I wouldn't. I would just throw them in the garbage. And if you're not in doubt and you're boldly confident, but every year you end up with powdery mildew and it progressively is getting worse and worse every single year, you're probably not good at hot compost. Sorry to break it to you. So you may not want to do it this year. Just throw powdery mildew and downy mildew. Well, not so much downy. Downy dies in our cold, but powdery mildew for sure in the garbage. Now, another really great way to know if you are good enough to compost a disease is to simply look up what temperature ranges these diseases thrive and survive in. It helps bring a basic understanding to whether or not you can compost it or if it's just debris that needs to be put in the garbage. Now, this understanding of the rules is something that's really important, and that is why today's sponsor is brilliant. And the reason for that is because if you've been a subscriber of this channel or part of the Geek Crew for any period of time, you know I am a huge supporter of knowing the why behind why we do things in the garden and in the world around us. Brilliant teaches subjects like math, science, computer science, and data analysis through interactive visual problems where you're actually working through the concepts instead of just sitting there watching someone explain it. Folks in the Geek Crew have purchased Brilliant for their children, but Brilliant stepped it up again with this and they've introduced Koji. Koji is Brilliant's AI-powered tutor, and it's actually built directly into your kids' lessons. And the best part about this is that Koji doesn't just simply give your kid the answers, it helps your kid get to the answers. Koji is able to see what problems your kid is currently dealing with on the screen, and then it gives them step-by-step instructions to help them through that problem and get to the answer at the end. As someone who spends an enormous amount of time trying to explain science to a multitude of different backgrounds of people, and it's something I stress on my channel all the time, you don't simply just want the answers on how to garden. You want the steps to help you identify what the problem is, and then these steps to help you find that solution. And that is exactly what Koji and Brilliant do. The other beautiful part about this is that when your kid has questions, you're not stuck trying to recall algebra you learned 25 years ago. Koji has your back for that. So if you want to try Brilliant for free, then you can go to the link www.brilliant.org/gardening in Canada, or simply click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And you can also get 20% off of your first subscription. So you can actually use that same code to get you 20% off of Premium Brilliant. And let's get back into the 3 things you absolutely must do in August to have a beautiful garden next year and for the remainder of this year. Next up is absolutely a huge mistake that everyone in cold climates typically makes, and that is leaving your soil bare. Now, I'm not talking about just simply leaving the mulch on top to avoid erosion due to wind or water. What I am speaking to, though, is actually utilization of crops. Now, here's the thing. Yes, we only have about 30 days. So option 1 is really quick turnaround crops like lettuce, radishes, kale, spinach, that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with going that route. Option number 2 is actually to grow something that's maybe a little bit more exotic, I guess you could say, with larger sized kales, maybe collard greens, things that do well in cooler climates and can be covered with frost cloth. Now, if you missed my video on what to start in August, I actually go through different types of frost cloth and what plants do okay under these frost cloths, etc., and so forth. So if you want to learn more about that, go check that video out. But if you want to learn more about how to actually cover the plants themselves, what the difference between poly and frost cloth is, how to use them in conjunction with each other, high tunnels versus low tunnels, etc., and so forth, then I highly suggest you hit that subscribe button, because I will be posting more about that here in the very near future. And by near future, I mean probably sometime in September, October, because I do have a lot of these started for this year, and they are going into this bed in particular, and I will be utilizing these methods to help get my crop through the beginning of our winter season here in Saskatchewan. Now, if you are absolutely not a goer of any sort of continue gardening type, then I highly, highly, highly suggest that you actually just use something like a cover crop. Cover crops just need to sprout. They don't need to fruit, they don't need to flower, and it's preferable that they actually don't do that. What you want to do is plant the cover crop, whichever one you choose. I actually have an older video on this discussing the different types of cover crops and the different purposes for them and what they do or don't do depending on which one you go with. Now, you plant that cover crop in, you water it. It may or may not get to be of a substantial size. The important part here is that it is keeping the microbes in your soil happy, healthy, and going through the exudates that are released through that cover crop. It also provides some sort of structural support against erosion, a little bit more so than just leaving that mulch on the surface would do. And then the other part to this is that it actually acts as a snow capture. So when you leave your garden in place in any capacity, tomato plants are a great example. You harvest everything from that tomato plant and then you leave that tomato plant in place. It acts as a big kind of fence, a snow fence, if you will, and it captures a lot of snow that actually can help increase the moisture inside of the soil and your microbe activity and the health of your soil, etc., and so forth. So if you've been going through a drought similar to what we've been going through here in Saskatchewan, although it seems as though that is completed now based on the amount of rain that a lot of Saskatchewan is getting, it's just a great alternative to leaving a bare piece of earth in place. So this is a great example of something that is going to be planted now. This bed, I think if you subscribe to this channel, you'd know this. I hate this bed. I hate the fact that it gets no light. It's the bane of my existence, if you will. So I actually think I'm going to put some garlic in here. So I'll kind of do a video when I actually go to do that. But these beds in general, I think are going to be where I decide to put my winter garden. And now the sun is coming out to try to melt my ginger ass. So I should probably move to the shade because I do not have sunscreen on and I will have the freckle apocalypse if I stay here. Now this next one hurts probably just as much as the removal of green plants hurts. And that is the removal of flowers. Now, I'm specifically going to do a video just on tomatoes because tomatoes are drastically different, in my opinion, in how we go about treating them with flowers compared to a lot of other crops. But if you've got watermelon, if you've got pumpkins, if you've got squash of some sort, don't just sit here and let it continue to flower. Make it focus on what it's already decided to develop. So for example, I have a very pretty little pumpkin hanging out here, and I've still got some flowers going on. By about middle of August, based on my frost date, which is in the middle of September, I am going to start removing any flowers that haven't already developed into something. The reason being is if you were to use your brain and look at when this pumpkin decided to show up, which was approximately 3 weeks ago, you know that anything else that is developing into a fruit right now has only about 3 to 4 more weeks to actually develop into a full fruit. And squash, for example, are very sensitive to any sort of changes in temperature. And therefore, they only have about 3 to 4 weeks, meaning that anything that's kind of turning into a fruit right now, it's only going to get it to be about this big. And anything else beyond that probably just isn't going to do much of anything. And if you want this guy to get bigger, or the one that you already have or past made in the future, you'll want to remove those flowers and any excessive growth. Now, I wouldn't remove your photosynthesis, your little solar panels yet. No, I wouldn't do that. But what I would do is the flowers. So that rule goes for any sort of plant except for tomatoes. Tomatoes are a little bit different, which is why I'm going to make a separate video, which is why you should hit that subscribe button if you want to see that video, because that is going to be coming out this week if it hasn't already come out and it's in the backlog. Anyways, Geek Tree, with that being said, if you want to watch the 3 things that absolutely destroy your garden in August, this is the video you want to check out. And that is what Google says you should watch next. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.